Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 4. This week we're going to talk about technology and its relationship to information management and how the two are forever intertwined. We're also going to spend some time discussing how to plan for information technology resources and how this impacts you as an information manager. Technology has had an integral role in shaping the history of information storage and recording since the dawn of civilization. It really wasn't until the industrial age began in the early 19th century when complex storage media and information retrieval devices became available to people, and technology and information management formed kind of an intertwined dependency on each other. And just as an interesting side note, over the summer I reread Bram Stoker's Dracula, and if you remember that novel, Stoker actually spends a great deal of time discussing how his main characters who are fighting the vampire are using what was then in the 19th century emerging technologies in order to hunt down the vampire. So he spends a good amount of time talking about characters using portable typewriters and wax cylinder phonograph recordings. And there's even a kind of a large discussion at one point where the characters are talking about how they're going to retrieve a certain piece of information they need off of a wax cylinder recording because it's an analog device and you have to play it from start to end, and they don't know where on the recording this information is, and they don't have an index to it. So you can see even then the relationship between technology and information management was forming an integral dependency. This illustration that we're looking at, in fact, is from a Popular Mechanics magazine in the 1930s. It shows the configuration of a home microfilm reader. And it's interesting that up until the mid-1970s, microfilm was actually seen as the storage medium of the future, especially for text-based documents and periodical literature like journals, articles, magazines, and reference materials like encyclopedias and directories. I even have some scholarly articles from around 1973 that talk about the author's envisioned proliferation of home microfilm libraries and home microfilm readers. And they really talked about microfilm as readers as being a sort of pre-electronic home personal computing device. It was seen that microfilm readers would come down in price to where you could afford to get one for a few bucks, and then you could subscribe to all kinds of microfilm libraries in your home. It would be the downfall of libraries everywhere when everybody had their own home microfilm reader. Well, the same sort of scenario has started to happen in the personal computing world, but it wasn't until the dawn of the personal computer age in the early 1980s when it was really practical to think about information transforming from being stored on a physical medium like microfilm, for everyday use at least, into completely electronic and digital storage media that a computer uses. So because of the advent of the personal computer age, and now that we have computers that are the sizes of notepads, we have powerful computers that are the sizes of suitcases instead of whole rooms like they used to be, that information technology really forms an integral partnership with the field of information management. And this diagram of the IM problem space is a great example of that shows the role of information technology right alongside the role of information management methodology. Now, since that is the case, most information managers, whether you're an individual researcher in an academic institution, or if you work in a public or private sector information management organization, most information managers are going to be asked throughout their careers to perform some form of information technology management functions. And really the dividing line between the IT manager and the information manager is blurring every day. And I think eventually there'll be IT managers only for very high-end computer and network functions, and that information managers will essentially perform all of the IT management functions for an organization. And you might be part of an organization where you already provide that function. But as information managers, we might be called upon to perform these specific IT functions. Work group or workstation management for individual staff members' PCs, including your own or people you work with, including work group types of peripherals like printers and scanners and other I/O devices. If you're asked to help maintain an application server or a web server, a file server, or backups, then those are what are called data center management functions that are really group resources that are designed for multiple users. And as an information manager, you may not be asked to actually manage an email server, but you may be asked to be involved in the process of evaluating and selecting network providers, email management platforms, web content management servers, and large-scale infrastructure for an organization. And then if you're an information manager, you certainly, and you're managing a budget, a department-sized organization, you're going to be asked to contribute budget estimates. You may be required to manage IT vendors for various services, and certainly you're going to be involved in some way in planning. And if your career, again, is anything like mine, a lot of IT planning is done in isolation by the official IT group in an organization. And it's usually as an afterthought when they come and ask the end users for their feedback. And often they don't give you much time in order to provide your feedback because of deadlines and submitting their plans and budgets and things for the organization. So maintaining a good formal IT planning process for your own group is more and more integral to the successful functioning of an information management organization. And that's what we're going to talk about more for the rest of the lecture here. So there are a number of different types of IT planning methodologies. The one we're going to use today is a very general planning framework. It's not really specialized for a particular function, and you may need a specialized planning methodology, which you'll need to research and incorporate into your own planning process. But in particular, there are user-centered methods of IT planning in which you solicit a lot of feedback from end users who are staff members and who might be customers, or people that you serve, or people who are engaged somehow with your information management group. There are also functional planning methodologies that provide a design process that you can use to figure out what you need in the way of IT resources for a specific outcome, like a specific information service online, or a product like a DVD, or an output to another group inside the organization. And again, there are specialized planning methodologies. Certainly, if you are involved with working in supercomputing or academic computing or biological informatics, there are IT planning methodologies for many specialized disciplines. There are also a number of software applications available that help you with IT planning. Certainly, a good flowchart application like we used last week is valuable, but there are other tools, and I've just listed one because if you get to know it a little bit this week, it's probably all you'll have time for. But Microsoft offers a free assessment and planning toolkit, which is an application that you download and you actually run it on your network, and it collects statistics about computer use and the age of the IT resources on your network, and then it'll give you specific recommendations that you can incorporate into a formal IT plan. And there are a number of these types of planning toolkits available. A lot of them are associated with specific IT vendors, which is fine. I mean, like the Microsoft application is slanted toward Microsoft products, but it can also be used, and so can many of the others, for general planning purposes without a specific vendor in mind. And it's also should be noted here that as research data management evolves and matures into its own discipline, we're finding that many funding agencies are requiring data management plans when you submit an application for a grant or a gift of funds. And in particular, the National Science Foundation and National Institutes of Health in the United States, along with a number of private foundations, like I believe the Mellon Foundation requires a data management plan. Part of the data management plan process is to talk about what you're going to do with your research information that you collect during the project. The other part is how you're going to store it and how you're going to manage it and what kind of technology you're going to use. So the IT planning process can be easily integrated into a data management plan as part of it, at least. Now let's talk about the planning process here. There are specific steps you should do in order to create a good IT plan. The first is to determine what kind of method you're going to use, what the scope of your plan is, and how you're going to structure it. I've got a structure already designed for this week's assignment, so we're going to concentrate on that. But you can craft your own report structure depending on your own circumstances. Certainly if you're a department member of one working in an organization, you're going to need a less formal plan. If you're actually a manager of a group of information workers, then you're going to need a more formal and complex plan. But the first thing you should do before launching into examining technology data is to gather some foundational information. And good administrative data is important. Certainly you need to understand what kind of budget you're going to be working with, whether it's a grant budget or it's an organizational budget that you're given from your parent company or agency. Budget is everything in IT management. So knowing what your budget's going to be over the next couple years and how much you might be able to request in additional funds is important to know from the outset, so you don't waste a lot of time, certainly. And then what kind of personnel are you going to need to implement your IT budget? Are there going to be people available on staff to assist you? Are you going to have to hire a vendor? Are you planning to do this yourself, which means you'll have to put aside other priorities for the moment? The next thing is to gather end user information. How happy are the people who are using the technology resources in your group with the existing resources that they have? Do they all have really old computers that they're unhappy with? Are they performing a lot of manual processes that need to be automated? Is the performance of the information system or the database they're using, is it slow and needs to be upgraded? Those kinds of things. You need some qualitative information from your end users. If your IT plans or your IT resources impact other work groups in an organization, for example, if you're a researcher and you have a lab here on campus, certainly you're going to need to talk with campus IT about implementing a new hub, a network hub, or a switch or something for your lab. And then finally, after you talk to other organizations, that's when you would start to gather your technical information about each individual piece of equipment in your organization and what state it's in, how old it is, and how it's performing. When that's finished, then you're going to be ready to draw your conclusions. Making estimates, cost, time, and outcome estimates is very important in information technology planning. Cost is always a factor because IT is expensive. Time is always a factor because of the time it takes to implement IT solutions. And then benefit, for a cost-benefit analysis, is important to show how that the expense of time and money is going to improve the life of the people in your organization. And then one IT plan is not any good. You need to, as it's a living document, you need to review it every couple of years and update it and enhance it. Now, if you're a very small group, if it's just you or if it's you and two other people, maybe every 2 years is sufficient time to review. If you're in a larger group and have a much more heavy IT responsibility, then everyone, reviewing every year is probably a good idea. This is the structure we're going to use for our IT planning project for this week, and it's a good general structure for any kind of IT organization, our IT information management organization that uses a lot of information technology. It can be customized a great deal to fit a specialized circumstance, like a government agency or a research lab or a library. And we're going to go through and discuss each one of these sections in the report here in some detail. Now, the first section, the executive summary, should be fairly short and concise, but you have to view this as being the advertising section of your report. You should be able to hit all of the issues you have and all of your recommendations that are going to make your problems better and how much it's going to cost. And you should assume, if you're working in a larger organization, that the managers that you submit this report to, asking them for funds, that's the main section they're going to read right away. And if they like what they see in the first section, that will entice them to review the rest of the report. So make some definite, concrete estimates and make sure everything that you, in sort of a large view, is included in that first executive summary section. Now, if you are submitting a grant application that you're including the IT plan with, or if you're in a large agency or company environment where the managers who are going to review your IT plan may not know a lot about your function and your organization, then it's good to include another paragraph or two that outlines the history of your group and what you do and why it's important to the larger group at the company or agency, and what kind of IT resources that you've used in the past, and why expense of new IT funds is going to benefit everybody by your department. The next section can be fairly large or can be fairly short, depending on whether you're looking at an existing organization that is going to change over the next couple of years, and it's facing particular issues in planning and implementation of new technology. If you're writing a brand new, an IT plan for a brand new organization, or if you're writing it for a grant, you may not need the organizational challenges so much. But if you're writing the IT plan for a group that has been around for a while and maybe has older, aging hardware and software that needs to be upgraded, then organizational challenges section can be fairly important. But you want to summarize in this section, how is your organization changing in terms of its functions and the services it provides, and the staffing of your organization, and whether your budget's going to shrink. Also, things that are important to mention, like, is the data that you're managing growing, and do you need more storage or more server processing power in order to manage it? And are your customers changing? The customers can be other researchers, they could be patrons of a library, they could be people who are served by an agency or customers of a business. Are they changing? And you need to adapt to their new needs. The largest usually section of the report is the technology vision section. And this is where we really incorporate where you are now in terms of your IT resources and where you would like to be in 2 to 5 years. And this is where you should bring in the emerging technologies you'd like to use, whether you need to do a lot of upgrading just to meet current standards in technology, and if there's new processes that you'd like to implement, if there's automation you'd like to implement to make manual processes easier, this is the section to do it. And it should talk less about the functions your organization provides and more about the technology that helps you achieve your functional objectives. So some of the possible areas to explore in this section of the document are mobile technology. Right now in libraries and information centers that manage collections of information, using mobile technologies with the capability of barcode scanning and some processing power, data collecting power, is an important emerging field. Mobile apps for customers so that they can query online services is important. For researchers, writing apps to allow researchers to collect data in the field and then send that via satellite link back to a parent research institution is a growing field of interest. As I mentioned, automation. Could currently manual processes be updated and automated to be more efficient and faster? We have a lot of cloud computing services these days, and if you listen to the cable news channels, you get inundated at times with vendors that are offering cloud computing services where you can host an application on a remote server or store your data on a remote server. But for a small organization or a work group, for example, a good use of cloud computing might be that instead of having a tape backup system for your disaster recovery, that you subscribe everybody in the work group to the Carbonite online backup service instead. And instead of paying, $1,000 to $1,500 for backup tapes or backup drives each year, you're just paying $60 per staff person for Carbonite to manage the backup system. And there are other services besides Carbonite. It's just a popular one that comes to mind. Web hosting. Could processes that are currently done by email or by paper forms, could those be converted and made accessible on a website? These are just some of the areas where you would bring to bear a vision for what you would like to see your organization implement to make their lives easier and to make the services you provide better for your customers. But it's certainly not all of the areas of emerging technology that you should think about. And as I think I mentioned briefly, but it's really important in this point to make clear whether you need remedial upgrades just to be able to maintain the status quo. A lot of times in small information managing organizations and work groups, technology resources can age, 3 to 5 years outdated, and people are still using old operating systems and old computers, and just to maintain the current standard in consumer information technology, you may need to make some significant investment in new computers and equipment just so you can keep doing what you're doing now, and maybe not adding new services or changing, but just maintaining the status quo. That's an important part to bring out in an IT planning report. Once you've completed the technology vision, it's time to move on to current assessment of what resources you have within your work group or organization. Now, I've posted an Excel worksheet on the course website that has 2 planning worksheets in the spreadsheet workbook. The first page is for individual and group technology resources, and the second is for data center resources. So what you need to do in this section is to review each staff member's workstation machine, any special equipment or software that they have, any group equipment like printers and scanners that the group uses, and assess their condition, how old they are, and whether they're going to need to be improved or replaced within the next couple years. And these are the fields that I included on the individual resource assessment matrix. It's the bare minimum number of fields that you would need to use to make a good assessment, and you'll get extra points for creativity if you can customize this field set to fit your own information management situation better, or to provide more concise information about each of the IT resources that you're going to review. The second page in that workbook is for you to assess the data center type of resources that you may need to include in your IT plan. So if you have a database server or a web server, a file server, a backup server, those are the kinds of resources that you need to include in this matrix. Also, if you are responsible, for example, for maintaining a network hub or a bridge or a switch or something like that, or some other kind of group IT resource, then that should be included in this matrix as well. And these are the basic fields that I provided in the matrix, and you again are welcome to customize this to make it fit your own situation or to make it work better. Once you provided a current assessment of IT resources, then it'll be important for you to create an action plan for how you're going to spend money to upgrade or improve or replace IT equipment and software within the next 2 to 5 years. You should only provide a direct cost estimate for the next 1 to 2 years, however, just because IT prices change so much. So you'll only know that what the price of a new PC or a new hard drive or a software version of software is reliably for about 6 months. So estimating for 1 to 2 years is all you can do. There's also the issue of new technologies being developed that you don't know about that you might want to include later on in the cost estimate as well. I mean, not the cost estimate, but the upgrade and improvement plan. And I've provided in both the individual assessment matrix and the data center assessment matrix, 3 columns for an upgrade plan, so you can write a statement about what the plan is directly on the resource matrix, what that upgrade is going to cost, and what the priority is. And there's some sample data in each one of the worksheets, and I'm sure you'll see how to use them fairly easily there. And then finally, the last section should be what kind of review schedule you intend to maintain for your information technology plan. Again, you should review and update it every 1 to 2 years, and then you should rewrite it every 3 to 5 years with fresh data. And then the last step, of course, is once you've created this plan and you've used it, you should use it to communicate your IT resource needs and goals and use it as a communication tool. It's also good as a budgeting tool to help you understand the costs of maintaining your IT resources over time. Then if you're applying for a grant, or if you are part of a larger organization where there's limited funds and you and maybe several other group managers are competing for funds, it's a great negotiating tool. Certainly, if you make yourself look like you know what you're doing and you have a handle on cost and will spend the money efficiently and responsibly, then you'll have a leg up on your competitors. And then it can also be used as an operational guide for how to implement technology, new technology as they come along. And then, once again, frequent updating and reviews will make the plan easier to live with. So it can be an IT plan for an information manager can be a very useful document to have for a variety of reasons. Oh, let's finish up by talking about our assignments this week. You've already read the little essay on the overview page and done the lecture. So the assigned readings are in 2 sections. The first 2 readings are information technology background materials. The first reading is from an MIS textbook that has a really good review of personal computing technology, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, so we'll get through it very quickly. But I thought I've never yet found a better chapter that relates technology to organizational needs yet. So even though that chapter is a little older, I still included it in the readings. The second set of readings are from your textbook, and those are focused on storage management and data center environment issues. And they talk, and I think we include intelligent storage and cloud computing storage. And the reason that I included so many readings on storage itself and had you buy that textbook is that unless you're managing just plain text kind of documents or managing information in a database, If you have to manage any sort of digital objects throughout your career as an information manager, storage is something you're going to wrestle with your entire career. Storage is one of the more complicated technical areas of information technology management, and it changes rapidly. Often the different technologies that are used for storage don't integrate well with each other and don't integrate well with evolving applications, so that there's a lot of engineering work that needs to be done to make a large-scale storage array play nicely with other IT resources. And it's an area that costs a lot of money, especially if you're having to manage large data sets or large digital objects like images or movies. And it's an area that you can't have too much expertise on. It's that important. And we're actually going to go back and use that textbook more when we get to digital preservation and data security. So we'll continue to use that, and that textbook is an excellent reference tool that you'll use beyond this course. I want you to concentrate on the IT planning assignment, so I don't have a tools and methods assignment for you. But after you complete your reports and post them, I do want you to read your classmates' reports and make comments on them, and you all are doing great in that area. And then for further readings, I have three optional items. The first one is a more current, short online course in contemporary information technology that is a good technical overview. It's produced by a company called Allison that's from Ireland, and the reason I didn't make it a required reading is that to use the online course you need to register on the site. So it's up to you whether you want to register on the site and take the course. They ask for your name and address and your email and whether you want to get a newsletter. But I haven't been bothered by them. But it's a for-profit company that provides online education. However, this course is free, but it's a good little course. The second is a link to the Microsoft Assessment and Planning Toolkit page. If you want to, you can actually download the planning and assessment application and play with it on your machines and test it out. And then there's a fun article that's number 3 that is a Washington Post 5 technology predictions for 2012. That is kind of interesting to look at. The article was published in late 2011. It's always interesting to gauge where technology predictions end up. So take a look at that. It's a short article and see whether you agree with the predictions made in that article. Of course, if you have questions or comments, you can contact me or Lori by email or phone, or if you're on campus, come by the office. I'm here every Tuesday all day in the office for office hours, and can make appointments with you other times if you need to talk to me or Lori. So have a good week and have fun with the IT planning assignment. It should be kind of a fun exercise to do, and I'll see you next week. Bye.